Hello and welcome to our 10th session. And in this session, we are going to explore more features of ComfyUI. But instead of theoretically explaining every feature of ComfyUI, it may become very boring. Let us practically start building something. And as we build our workflow, we are going to explore all the features of ComfyUI. We are provided with a challenge. We have to create a mythological short film on the subject of creating a spark. So the theme of this subject is every human is special. He has infinite capabilities, but most of the time we won't remember our capabilities. And only when we get that spark or inspiration, or once we understand our capability, anything in this world will be possible. So we can remove the word impossible from our diary. So based on this theme, we are going to make a short film. This is a mythological film taking a reference from Ramayana. So to make this film, the very first thing we need is the story and storyboard. This story and storyboard I have already created for you using Olama and Quen and other language models. I am going to explore these features in the future session. Now I am not going to concentrate on storyboarding, scripting and prompting. This we are going to cover it in the next session. And in this session, let us concentrate on the ComfyUI part. I will give you ready-made storyboard, prompts and also the model list. All you have to do is build a workflow in ComfyUI and generate these videos. So right now, we are going to make a mythological short film. And based on our storyboard, we first identify or divide our story into shorts. Now I am taking a very simple theme here about how in Ramayana, Hanuman was inspired by Jambuvanta and then he got his entire strength and flew to Lanka and destroyed it. To create this scene, we first prepare the shots, and based on the shots, we are going to prepare the video in 2 steps. The very first step is for every shot, we are going to create one image, and we call these images as keyframes. Now in our script, we have 8 shots, and for 8 shots, we are going to prepare 8 keyframes. Our first step in making this mythological film is we are going to take 8 shots, and this short list I have already shared it on the Patreon page. You can go to the Patreon page and you can download it. And I have also shared you all the models that I have used. The links are there. You can download the models and you can use it. And we are now going to build this entire workflow from scratch. So let's begin. Now, if you come into the YouTube video page or in the e-learning page, if you scroll down in the description, if you click on more, you are provided with a Patreon link. Now click on this link and this will bring you to the AI Film Studio Setup and Filmmaking Patreon page. And here if you scroll down, you have all the resources needed for this ComfyUI project. If you scroll down in the attachment, you are provided with 10 storylines generated using olama.pdf file. Click on this link to download it. Once it is downloaded, double click to open this. You see the story and the short division. Hanuman finds the spark short story is divided into 8 shots. So you have shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4. So you can go through this document and you can see what all shots that we need for making this video. Now, if you scroll down, we have been asked to generate 8 keyframes in this order. Our first step is to create these keyframes, and we are going to create these keyframes using text to image workflow in ComfyUI. So I will close this document and also my browser. Come into ComfyUI. If you have the shortcut on the desktop, click on the shortcut. Or else in DAI Studio, Windows, we have ComfyUI Easy Install. And here you have start ComfyUI.bat file. Before you launch, run this update easy install.bat first. Update ComfyUI.bat, update ComfyUI and notes.bat once to update all your installations. This I have already shown you in a previous video. Double click on start ComfyUI bat. and wait for ComfyUI Easy install to load in your browser. ComfyUI is launched, and in your default browser, you have this 127001 port number 8188. You have your ComfyUI interface open. Once ComfyUI is launched, you are seeing an unsaved workflow here. If you are a beginner and if you want to work with various workflows, ComfyUI has provided you with a templates icon here. And if you click on this, many workflows are created by ComfyUI, and these workflows gets updated frequently. And you can see a huge number of workflows available here. You can come into image and you can select any of this Flux 1 dev text to image or any of the workflow over here. To create video, select WAN 2.2 14B image to video. This is what we are going to use. Many of these workflows are readily available to you. You can just click on it and you can load it. For you to understand how these nodes work in the workflow, we are going to create this workflow from the scratch. I will close the template. On the top, I will click on the plus. I will create a new workflow. Now click here on the ComfyUI icon. Come to File and choose Save As. So I am going to organize all the workflow related to this Hanuman mythological film in a folder called Hanuman. I will add a /. I am going to call this as keyframe underscore text underscore to image underscore, and I will call it as Flux because we are using Flux model here, and I will click confirm. Our workflow is saved. In this empty workflow, we are going to start by adding a node. The easiest way is just double click it here, and in the search, I am going to search for load. I am going to choose load diffusion model. Click on this and this node will be now added here. For this node to work, I need a model. What are models? Models are nothing but these large language models which are pre-trained to do a specific job. And from where are we going to get these free models? In the browser, type Hugging Face. The very first link here, huggingface.co. Click on this, you are going to find a lot of models available to you, which you can download free of cost. Come into the search model, and the model I am going to use is a type called as Flux. And if I press enter, you can see many Flux model available here, and it comes from the company called as Black Forest Tabs. If you find this interface of Hugging Face to be very difficult for you, there is one more website. I will click plus here, and if I type civit and if I press enter, the very first link, civitai.com. If you click on this, this is another website where you have a better user interface to download your models. So I can come into the models, search for Flux text to image, and I am going to get all the models which uses this Flux text to image. To make this work convenient for you, I have already selected the models and I have provided you these model links so that you can directly use it. If you again come into my AI Film Studios and Filmmaking Patreon page, the link is in the YouTube description or in the e-learning page. If you scroll down, I have provided you one file, models for keyframe generation.pdf. Click on this to download it. If I just open this folder and if I double click to open this PDF file, I have to download 4 models here, and I have also mentioned in which folder you have to save it. Now for the first thing I need is the diffusion model. This is a base model. See, Flux to Clean base model. I have provided the link here from Hugging Face. So if you just click on this link, if you click allow in your PDF document, it is now asking you where you want to save it. Come into your D drive AI Studio models, and all these models will be stored in the diffusion models folder. Select this folder and click on the save button. This 7.21 gigabyte size of model has been downloaded and has been saved in D models diffusion models folder. Come back to the document and you have the second file to download. Click on this, come here into your AI Studio models folder, and I want this model also to be saved in this diffusion model folder. Click on save to save this. This is also around 7.21 gigabytes of file. So we have downloaded two large language models. One is the base model. When you are doing experimentation and when you want to continuously generate the models faster, we are going to use this base model. For the final delivery, we are going to use this another model. We have placed these two models in the diffusion models folder. Coming back to my workflow, if I press R and if I refresh it, now if I click on this undefined, you can see these two models here, and I am going to select my Flux to Clen base 4B safe tensors model. And the weight D type, I will set it to default. Now, we have our diffusion model loaded now. The next part is, we have to provide text prompt to create our image. We have to explain exactly what we want. For this text input and prompt input, we are going to load another type of model called as text encoders. So if I double click here, come into the search and choose load, and this time come here and choose load clip. So when I click on load clip, you have second node added here, and in this load clip, I have to again choose a model. If you come into the downloaded PDF document, I have provided you with a file text encoders. Text encoders are used to convert our English prompt into the language that our AI or the machine can understand. We call this as text encoders, and I have provided the link for this text encoder, and this has to be placed in a folder called text encoders. I will click on the third link here. Come into your D drive, AI Studio, and this time in models, choose text underscore encoders folder and click on the save button. Now this is around 7.49 GB. Coming back to my ComfyUI workflow, again press R to refresh workspace. Then in the load clip, in the clip name, if I click here, you can see I'm using Qwen 3.4B safe tensors as my clip. So I will select this, and in the type, I am going to click here and choose Flux 2 because this is a Flux 2 model, and the device, I will leave it to default. Here clip, CLIP stands for Contrastive Language Image Pre-training. This is what we call in short as clip, and they are responsible for translating text prompts into numerical data or embeddings that the diffusion model can understand. They act as translators, enabling text to image generation by converting text into visual concepts. We have to load one more model here, and we call this model as VAE. VAE stands for Variational Auto Encoder. In the workspace, I will double click, and in the search, again I will search for load, and you have load VAE node coming from Comfy Core. So when I click on this, you see this load VAE node added here. The function of this load VAE, it compresses the image into a low dimensional latent image for processing, that is to encode it, and after the image is processed, it expands them back into pixel images. So it carries down both the encoding process and the decoding process, and for this we need a different model. Coming back to the downloaded PDF file, you have here the fourth link to be placed in VAE, and when you click on this link, in the save window, come to D, AI Studio, and in models, come to VAE and choose the save button. Come back to ComfyUI and again press R on your keyboard. This refreshes your workflow. Then in the load VAE, click on the name here and select WAN 2.1 VAE safe tensor. We have our three models needed for our text to image ready. In ComfyUI, we can organize these nodes in a better way by creating groups. I am going to right click here and you have add group. click on add group and I am going to call this group as models and click OK. I will arrange these three nodes one below the other. I will bring my model node on the top and I will drag it to cover all these three nodes like groups. So if I drag it, you can see this moves with it. So I can even right click and I can choose the option fit groups to nodes so that it fits exactly here. And you can see here these three buttons are appearing here because RG3 Comfy setting on the top. If you click here and come to settings, we have enabled this option show fast toggles in group headers. So I will close this. Why when I hover, you see these three buttons. Our model loading section is ready. To add our prompt, we need a text box. So to add this text box, again I will double click on this work area and I am going to now search for clip text and you can see clip text encode node available. So when you click on this, you have this clip text encode node added. I can even double click here and I am going to rename this as positive prompt. What all we need in the image, we are going to type it here. All these nodes are now currently placed separately and we have to link them. When we start the execution, from the load clip, you see a yellow color and positive prompt also has a yellow color. Whereas for diffusion model, you have, if I drag from here to here, you can see it lavender color because this output is different and this input is different. So this color indication tells you which nodes can be connected. So from load clip, I can drag here and connect it to the positive prompt. I can come on the top floating toolbar. I click on this arrow and I am going to give it a green color. I will double click here and in the search node, I will again type clip text encode and this time I will double click the name here and I am going to call this now as negative prompt. In the top toolbar, I will click on the color and I am going to choose a red color. And the input for this negative prompt will again come from this load clip. So from load clip, I can take multiple outputs. So I can take one more output from here and connect it to this negative prompt. I will press Control on my keyboard and if I just drag a box, you can now see both the nodes are selected. I can right click on this empty area here and choose add group for selected nodes. Instead of choosing add group, I select add group for selected nodes. I will double click on this group name and I am going to call this group as prompt. So we have the models ready and our prompt is now ready. Now our models are ready and we are going to give the prompts here. Based on the prompt, we have to now create the images. Now to create the image, our ComfyUI needs an empty canvas. We call this as an empty image. So I will just come down here, double click and in the search node, I will type empty and I will select Flux to latent. So I will select this node empty Flux to latent and when I click on this, you have a node and you can see the output color here is pink color. I will double click on the name here and I am now going to call this as latent image. I have set its width and height and batch size. We have three parameters here. See, for latent image, you are not seeing any input here. Width, height and batch size, you see a dot on the left hand side. But if I hover the mouse on the dot on the left hand side, if I click and drag, you see all the nodes that can be connected to this width. It shows that this is an integer number called now a primitive. You can now see a new node is added. Width is now grayed out and we are controlling the width through this primitive. In the top toolbar, if I click on these three dots, you have an option here, rename, and I am going to call this as width. Instead of setting the width here, I am setting it through this node. Now, similarly, even for height, I am going to click on this left dot, drag, and again I am going to select primitive. I will just drag it and place it here, and the height I am going to set it to 576 and click OK. Control after generation, I will keep it fixed. I will double click on this name primitive and I am going to call this as height. I have set two nodes separately, one for width and one for height. Now I will place width and height one below the other like this. Press Ctrl and I will drag a box around this width and height nodes. I will right click and again choose the option add group for selected nodes. I will select this group name here and I will call this as image size. So this is going to set the size of our image. So I will drag this and place it here. Now our next process is the image generation, and to make you understand briefly how this works, when large language models are trained with images, they start with a clear image and it is going to destructure the data into a noise. In case of ComfyUI, when you want to generate images back, it always starts with the noise. So the starting point will be random pixels present at random position, and it will be then rearranged and it will be slowly converted into the image. To start creating the image, the very first thing we need is we have to add a random noise to our latent image. Coming back to ComfyUI, our models are ready. To enter prompts, we have made the text prompt added. We have set the latent image, and the image generation process starts with creation of this noise. So for that, I will middle mouse click, pan it to the right, and I will just double click here and I will now search for the node random noise. I will select this random noise and place it here. So this is going to generate noise randomly. This random noise will be sent to a sampler, and this sampler is the main part of this entire workflow where the process of the image generation starts. To add this sampler, I will now just double click and in the search node, I will type sampler, and you have this sampler custom advanced. I will add this node. The noise output coming out of random noise will be connected to this noise. I have to feed the information of my prompt. So we are getting this positive and negative prompt, and these prompts should guide our sampler to create the image. We need to add a guider. I have to add a node called as CFG guider. We call this classifier free guidance. It is going to control how strongly the AI follows a text prompt compared to its own internal knowledge. It acts as a bridge between prompt and sampling. So to add this CFG guider, again I will double click here, and in the node I am going to search for this CFG guider and I am going to select it. I have my CFG guider here. I have to give the input of my model. I have my model here and I am going to drag from my load diffusion model. I am going to connect it to my CFG guider. In this connection, if it is going back and if it is needs to be arranged correctly, I can drag this CFG guider to the top, and if you bring the mouse at the center dot and if you click, you have an option add reroute. If I add this reroute, I can just drag it up like this. I will click on this dot again and add reroute. I will drag this CFG guider here and I will pull this here, so that now you clearly know how this is moving from the model to this CFG guider. I need a positive prompt for this CFG guider. Drag the positive conditioning output to the positive node here and the negative conditioning node to my negative CFG guider input. CFG indicates how many steps it is going to take to generate my model. If I middle mouse click and drag here, in case of my Flux 2 clean model, If you see its specifications on the Hugging Face page or in the Civit AI page, you can know that this requires just about 5 steps. So I can change this value to 5. I am determining this value based on the model that I am going to use. Here, I will middle mouse click and drag to right. I will connect this guider over to this guider here. I need this sampler, and to add this sampler, I am going to add one more node here. So I will double click here and I will search now for K sampler. I am going to select this K sampler select node. And when I select this node, here in the sampler name, you have different types of sampler available. And based on the model, I have to choose different type of samplers. And for my Flux 2 clean model, I have to leave it at the default Euler. And I am going to drag this sampler and connect it to my sampler input in my sampler custom advanced node. And now for the sigma, I have to add another node called as the Flux 2 scheduler. So I will just double click here and I will select for my Flux 2 scheduler, add this Flux 2 scheduler node below this K sampler select, and this has sigma output. I will drag this sigma output to the sigma input of my sampler custom advanced. From the noise to the complete image, how many steps it is going to take? This is what we called as steps. That is, more the steps are, it uses more resources, but the quality of the image will be better. The number of steps that you have to use depends on the model that you are using. Coming back to ComfyUI, for my model Flux 2 clean base 4B safe tensor, I have to use this default 20 steps and I have to define its width and height. We have to give this width and height value in two places. One in the latent image and another in the Flux 2 scheduler. And this is the reason why we have used these primitives to define this size. So that if you change the size at one place, it will be altered both in the latent image and Flux 2 scheduler. I will drag and connect it to the width here. From the image height width, I am going to drag and connect it to the height here. And I am going to leave the steps at 20. And finally, it needs the canvas or the latent image. And we have already added this latent image node here. I will take its pink color output from here and connect it to my advanced node here. I will just drag it to the left. I will select this center dot, click and choose add reroute. Now I will place my latent image here and I will drag this reroute bottom so that now this is all the input nodes of my sampler custom advanced is connected. This output that is coming from this sampler custom advanced is an encoded output and this has to be now decoded. If I middle mouse click and we had used a load VAE. Here VAE stands for variation and left auto encoder. After this sample is generated, I want this image to be decoded. So I will double click here and type VAE, and this time I am going to use VAE decode. For this VAE decode, I have to give the output from the sampler. I will connect it to the sample here. See, both are in the pink color. And for this VAE, the output is going to come from my load VAE. For this, we had loaded variational autoencoder model, WAN 2.1 model we had loaded. So I have to connect this VAE output. I will just scroll out a little, drag it from this VAE and connect it to the VAE decoder here. I will just move this CFG guider to see the center point of this connection. Click there and choose add reroute. And I am going to drag it and place it to the top here. I will click again on this point and I will add reroute and I will connect it here. So I will leave this back. I can see now that from my load VAE, this connection is going to my VAE decoder. this VAE decoder finally going to decode and give me the final image. And now I want to save this image as a PNG or JPEG file to my hard disk. From this image, I will drag, and if I release, it will show all the relevant nodes. You have two nodes here, preview image and save image. Preview image will just show you the image, but if you want to save it to your hard disk, I am going to now select the save image. I can give this file a prefix name. These images will be saved in my renders or in the output folder, and I want this to be organized correctly in a folder. So here I will click on ComfyUI. I am going to create a folder called Hanuman, and I will add a / and then call this as keyframes _. So this will be the file prefix. I will click on OK. Our entire workflow is ready. I will come into my ComfyUI menu here, come to File and save this. So let us now give the prompt and create our image. If you come now into our storyline, our first shot, I need a seashore, vast oceans, and a big Vanara or monkey's army standing there, and Hanuman should be standing there and staring at the water. So this is the shot that I need. I have to give the right prompt, and this prompt also we are going to generate it using Olama and the models similar to ChatGPT but locally. Right now we have not installed it. I have already generated these prompts for you and I am going to give it to you. If you come to the AI Film Studio Setup and Filmmaking Patreon page, the link is in the YouTube video and also in the e-learning page. If you scroll down, I have provided you with a file called as keyframe1prompt.pdf. Click on this file to download it. Open the downloaded folder and double click this PDF file to open it. And for the very first keyframe, I have provided you with a prompt. You select this entire prompt as it is, right click and copy it. Come to ComfyUI Studio and in the positive prompt, right click and paste it. I does not want certain things in the image. If you come into my PDF file, I have added a negative prompt like low quality, blurry, JPEG articraft, sci-fi, oversaturated. So I doesn't want any of this effect in my keyframe photo. So I will select this negative prompt now, right click and copy it. Come back to the ComfyUI workflow and in the negative prompt, right click and paste it. Now we have all our inputs ready. I am going to come here and click on the run button to generate our first keyframe for our video. So when you click on run, now the execution starts. You can see a green line now running on the negative prompt. From the negative prompt, it will go to positive prompt. It crosses it. It comes into the sample custom advanced. And here you can see at the top, the rendering is happening. And from this goes to VAE encode and it is saying. Now the error is happening in this VAE decode stage. The reason out of this is we have connected the VAE model here. So if I come to here to load VAE, we are using the Flux 2 diffusion model, but for VAE, were using this WAN 2.1 different model. And this is the reason we were getting the error. I will click on this name and I will select the Flux 2 VAE safe tensors. I will come into ComfyUI file save. And another issue here is if I drag to this save image, I will click on this name and here after Hanuman for the folder, I have to add / and not / and click OK. I am going to go into file, save this with my entire workflow ready. I will now click on the run button. So now the execution starts and from this sample custom advanced, it is going to render again. It will move to VAE decode and you can now see the image generated here. If you come into your folder DAI Studio renders, now a folder called Hanuman is created. If I double click it and if I click on this, you can now see the image generated. using Flux. So now I will close this base model. We are going to generate the same models using a different diffusion model, and I can show you the difference. Say for example, I will click here, and this time instead of the base model, I will select Flex to Cleanse 4B safe tensors model. This is a little high-end model which may take more time to render, and also it requires a greater VRAM. Using my Clen 4B safe tensors model, I am going to click on the run to create 3 more images of this. So now it is rendering. So I got the first image. You can see the quality is better now. I will again click on run. I got the second image, and again I will click on the run. So I got the third image. Come into your DAI Studio renders Hanuman folder, and I am going to rename this file. I will right click and choose rename, and I will call this as keyframe 1A and press enter. And for the second one, I will rename this as keyframe 1B, and for the third one, right click and rename this as keyframe 1C. Coming back to ComfyUI, we have now successfully completed the creation of keyframe for our very first shot, and for the remaining shots we are going to create our keyframes in our next session. And I will also introduce you to another node here which is called as IP adapter, which is used to maintain consistent character loop throughout your shots. This we are going to cover it in the